Right now, an epic G.I. Joe auction is underway, featuring some of the rarest and most legendary pieces from that 1980s toy line. We're gonna take a look at what's on the auction block, plus we're gonna take a look at what made G.I. Joe one of the most legendary and iconic toy lines of all time, and why collectors today are willing to pay big money for a small piece of that huge history. Yo Joe. In 1964, Hasbro changed the toy industry forever with the launch of G.I. Joe, the very first action figure. At 12 inches tall and fully posable, these figures gave boys the same kind of creative play that Barbie had given girls, only with military uniforms, gear, and vehicles. It was such a hit that G.I. Joe became a household name. But by the late 1970s, the 12-inch soldier was fading. Rising oil prices made large plastic toys expensive, and kids' tastes were shifting. Then, in 1982, Hasbro reinvented the brand for a new generation with G.I. Joe, a real American hero. Now in a smaller 3.75-inch scale, these figures matched the same size of Kenner Star Wars toys, and suddenly vehicles, playsets, and massive armies were possible. What really set G.I. Joe apart was the storytelling. Each figure came with a file card written by Marvel Comics legend Larry Hama, giving kids a window into the character's background and personality. Add to that the hit Marvel comic book series and the animated cartoon, and G.I. Joe wasn't just a toy, it was a full-blown universe. For collectors, these toys captured the spirit of the 1980s, bold characters, futuristic vehicles, and endless battles of good versus evil. G.I. Joe, a real American hero, became one of the most successful toy lines of the decade. And that's why, more than 40 years later, these figures aren't just nostalgic playthings. They're cultural icons, commanding serious attention when these go to auction. And the awesome people over at Hakes were kind enough to send us this catalog, and were also kind enough to sponsor this video. And it says top secret and for my eyes only, but I'm gonna pull a Cobra move here and take you into what's inside this auction, at least some of my favorite pieces. There's over 200 items, too much to show in one video, and there are some jaw-dropping ones. So I'm gonna take you over my personal top 15 list and the ones I'm most excited to see go on this auction. All right, starting us off strong at number 15, it's the Cobra Terrordrome with the Firebat. First released in 1986 in Series 5, this is a piece that I always see in vintage toy shops and admire how rad this playset looks. But because it's such a big item with so many parts, I always find either broken or missing parts. But here it is in amazing condition, sealed in its original box, which is almost impossible to find these days, and it's graded 75 plus by CAS. At number 14, it's the Hovercraft Killer Whale. And my cousin used to have this, and I would love playing with this when I went to his house. He basically had every G.I. Joe and Transformer known to man, so that's how I know all of these toys. This was first released in 1984 for Series 3, and it came with an action figure named Cutter, who was the pilot. So many collectors have this in their Joe collection, but not as pristine as this. It's Q-graded 60EX by AFA, and the Q grade just means that it isn't factory sealed, but the contents inside have not been used. At number 13, my favorite G.I. Joe figure, Zartan in the Swamp Skyer. And I just like the way Zartan changed color, and this was the first Joe figure I actually owned. It was released in 1984 for Series 3, and this one has the controversial character profile that describes Zartan as an extreme, paranoid schizophrenic, which was later removed due to complaints from mental health advocates. So that makes this toy even that much more sought after. This is graded 80 by AFA, and it's just a stunning example. And if any of you buy this, I want to be your friend so I can come over and take a look at it in person. At number 12, Destro. And I think this is one of the best evil right-hand men in an entire action series line, you know? There was Beastman in Masters of the Universe, there was Starscream in Transformers, but Destro was just badass in the way that he talked, and his appearance with that metal case over his head, man. You can't beat Destro. This is the 1983 Series 2 release on the 20 back, and it's been graded 80 plus by AFA, and I would love to have this one in my own collection. But next is a figure that I would love to have even more. At number 11, Scarlet. This was first released in 1982 for Series 1, but this is her 1983 Series 2 release on the 20 back. And I loved the cartoons. And yeah, I did have cartoon crushes. Some like Tila. I even knew some kids who had a crush on Smurfette. I had a crush on Scarlet. Is that weird? No, we were little kids. It's not weird. Who cares? We were kids. This has the explosion back and is graded 80 by AFA. And this one I would love to have in my personal collection. And now we get into the top 10, and I love seeing items like we're about to see because you don't see them come up for auction that often. At number 10, unproduced Duke art from 1995. This is a mixed media original art depicting First Sergeant Duke directing an attack. And what makes this so special is that it was made right when the G.I.joe toy line was canceled by Hasbro, so it never saw the light of day on any of their packaging. And it's also unsigned by the artist, so we don't know who created it. I think it's just a cool piece of toy history, and I'm glad to see pieces like this on this auction. At number 9, the Mud Fighter and Cobra Hiss 2-pack. I know some people call it the AHSS. I call it the Hiss. Released in 1989, this one is a grail for many Joe collectors because it was an exclusive from a New England-based chain of stores called Benny's, making this almost impossible to find in great condition. And this one is only one of 4 graded in AFA 85, with no other examples grading higher. Just a great piece, and I can't wait to see what this one sells for. At number 8, motorized Crimson Attack Tank. Released in 1985 for Series 4, the Cat was a Sears exclusive, and this toy reused the Mobat mold, but in my opinion looks way cooler because of its color scheme. And there have only been 8 factory sealed examples graded by AFA, and this is the first example ever to come to auction. And I'm going to be watching closely at what the final gavel price is for this, I call a great toy. At number 7, Amphibious Personnel Carrier. Released in 1983 for Series 2, this example of the APC has no barcode, which makes it rarer and harder to find. And again, this was one that I used to love playing this when I went to my cousin's house, of course. There was just so much variation with Joe toys. This one has been graded by AFA at 80, with only one other example graded at an 80, with no other known examples being graded higher. At number 6, Cobra Soldier. This one was released in 1983 for Series 2 on the 20 back with the Peach file card, and this is graded at an AFA 90 mint, making this the highest graded version of this action figure ever to be offered at an auction. Just a beautiful example of this. And before we get to number 5, be sure to subscribe and like this video. That helps out the channel greatly. At number 5, Battle Corps Bazooka, final original art card signed by artist Doug Hart. And I love seeing items like this come up for auction because you don't see them every day, and it allows you to experience the process behind these toys and in their raw elements. It's just amazing. This is from 1993, and this is the 3rd and final version that was approved for the cards. It still has production notes on it, which makes it awesome to have, I think. Again, love seeing pieces like this, and let me give an early congratulations to the person who actually gets this in their collection. At number 4, Motorized Battle Tank, released in 1983 for Series 2. The Mobat is one of the classic toys of the 80s, and to me, at least, it seemed like everyone had this toy except for me. This is the no barcode version, which is rare to find, and it also has the Peach file card. This is graded at an AFA 85 Near Mint Plus, and there are none that have been graded higher. At number 3, Viper Attack Glider, released in 1983 for Series 2, and this was a toy that I actually did have as a kid. I only had it for a week because I think I just lost it when it went over the fence into a neighbor's yard, ran over by a car, who knows what. Didn't last that long. It came with the Viper pilot action figure, which was a kid's dream to attach your figure to a toy that can actually fly. It's extremely rare to find one in a factory sealed box these days and in great shape, and this item at auction is both. It's rated 85 Near Mint Plus by AFA, and this is the single highest graded example on Earth. And I'm gonna be watching this one closely to see how much this goes for by the close of auction. At number 2, Snake Eyes. Not just one of my favorites, but I think one of the all-time great action figures ever made. This was released in 1982 for Series 1 on the 11 backs, and this version of Snake Eyes has the straight arm feature that would later be replaced by the swivel arm feature. This was released at a time in American pop culture where martial arts was a craze, and at the time of making this action figure, it was one of the best-selling toys at the time. But finding one of these days in a factory-sealed card is extremely rare, and up for auction is one in not only sealed condition, but it's graded at a 90 mint condition by AFA, making this the single highest graded version of Snake Eyes on Earth. And once I buy this, I mean, once somebody buys this, I will just be in awe of that collector. So, an early congratulations. And at number 1, the USS Flagg, but this is the Canadian version. Released in 1986 for Series 4, this has the bilingual box of French and English, but instead of the American flag, this one has the Canadian flag and a Tim Hortons inside the deck. I am just kidding. That's an inside joke for my Canadian brothers and sisters. Timbits rule, by the way. It did come with an action figure in Admiral Keel Hull. It's rare to find excellent examples in the American release version, and to find a Canadian version, it is extremely rare. This was the largest toy to be released at the time, and it's a holy grail for Joe collectors. This version on auction is graded AFA 85Q Near Mint Plus and is the only AFA graded example to exist. This is gonna be someone's centerpiece of their collection for sure, and it's expected to go for high dollar amounts, which is why I have this on the top of my list, both for rarity, historical significance, and because of my interest in seeing what this will sell for. So that was my top 15 of the 200 plus items that are in this auction. So if you want to check out what's in the entire auction, go to Hakes.com. There's also a link in my description. And if you enjoyed this video, hit that like button and please subscribe. And to watch other videos about vintage toys and their history, click the videos on your screen now. And as always, my friends, thank you, and I will see you next time.